This is another Patreon selection from our good friend Tyler Prohl. You can find Tyler Prohl on social media and also his artworks that are available for sale and purchase as well.
Yeah, so I mean today we're going to be talking about I feel like I have this kinship to Tyler cuz this is exactly the kind of movie that I knew Tyler would one day bring.
You know
us.
it. Yeah.
So thank you once again, Tyler.
Yeah.
From the Patreon who brought us some robot jocks, some fighting robots, as well as Sylvester Stallone protecting his own mother. We have Barry Bostwick's glorious mane of hair in Megaforce. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. Yes, we do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great content and great deals and opportunities to tell us what movies we can review in the future, just like Tyler did with this episode here. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And, of course, hit the like and subscribe button. Tell your friends about the show. That's a little thing you can do. It's a big thing for us, and it helps out the show greatly, and we appreciate it. And once again, we're talking about, 1982 was a big hit for movies. And we're talking about another one from 1982. It's Megaforce.
Yeah, so let's do some deeds, not words, but words first.
Words
the Republic of Sardoon has no way to defend itself from neighbor country Gamibia, so Major Zara and General Burn White enlist the help of Megaforce and their leader Ace Hunter to help. Ace and the Megaforce team have to use their cunning deeds to defeat the Gamibian forces, including their old rival, Duke Guerrera.
Megaforce is directed by
Hal Needham.
Yeah. Now, Hal was a roommate of Burt. He was a famous stunt guy, and I think the story is he was staying at Burt Reynolds' guest house. And then he had a wild idea for a movie. Let's just have a big car chase and a bootleg involved, and that was Smokey and the Bandit.
And he directed 6 of the 7 Smokey and the Bandit films.
Right. So after the success of Smokey and the Bandit, Hal Needham was no longer just a stunt guy. He was also a film director.
Yeah.
He also directed a lot of movies with Burt Reynolds, like Gator. I just mentioned Smokey and the Bandit, and then Stoker Ace, but also the Cannonball Run, I think part 2, and I think that was.
He did the first one as well.
Oh,
he did the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to have some great comedy, watch Siskel and Ebert review both Cannonball Run films.
Yeah, and also Longest Yard. That's another one of Burt Reynolds, a football movie. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so he's seen this from another sports movie. So Hal Needham has an interesting life, and this is kind of the context where I think it's the right script for him. If you want a big car chase, explosions, and outer worlds, especially for the time, I think it's the right person that you need for this kind of movie. Screenplay is interesting to know about the screenplay because I didn't know who wrote this. I just know about the movie.
I'm still not sure they know who wrote this.
Yeah. So James Whittaker, Albert S. Rudy. Now he's famous for film producing. I'm interesting to know that he actually wrote from some of this. So he produced like The Longest Yard, even the sequel to The Longest Yard. But also he comes in to write a little bit. It's interesting because if you look at his biography, it's mostly for film production.
Yeah, and he was looking actually at, he had seen this film that to him felt like it was going in a serious direction, but then realized maybe the hook of it was that it was supposed to be a spoof. It was supposed to be a little over the top. And it was about that time that they became aware of a Pirates of Penzance actor named Barry Bostwick.
Right.
And they felt, oh my God, what a perfect performer to lead the Megaforce. It was one of those things that I think while the writing process was going on, they had a lot of trouble figuring out what the tone of this was supposed to be.
I think with Megaforce, you have to understand that you have to play with a little more fun with it.
Yeah, and Needham's big thing was he wanted to make the film. I find the lovely word of believable in his description of what the film was supposed to be. But he really wanted a fun and believable hero that the audience would root for, as opposed to more of the darker edge thing. In the 70s, we had a lot of vengeance picks.
Anti-heroes. We had a lot of anti-heroes. We talked about it in North Dallas 40, a lot of anti-hero guys. Yeah. Dirty Harry, Death Wish.
Yeah, and I think he was right on the money because in the 80s, we started to see more of the heroic, chest-bursting kind of, fighter pilot heroes, and he was kind of on the cusp of getting there, maybe just not at the right time, maybe not at the right script. Who knows why this film didn't perform well.
82 was just saturated.
It was saturated. Yeah, that's true. For every winner, there was a couple losers.
All right, so we talked about screenwriting a little bit, starring Barry. Now he comes from a little bit. Like you mentioned, they saw him in a play.
Yeah, Pirates of Penzance was where he was caught, and seen kind of as the leader of that film. In fact, he kept his hair growth from that film because he thought it would be easier to shave it when I need to shave it instead of having to do it for this.
Lazy. All right, any movie that has Michael Beck in it, it's all right with me because he's from the Warriors. My God, if you haven't seen the Warriors, you need to talk.
You need to Xanadu see the Warriors,
and also Xanadu. Yeah,
not Xana don't see.
Yeah, so the early '80s, Michael Beck was pretty. Yeah, he was a pretty prominent person. He had his stock a little bit rising, and then I think he just kind of like vapored away.
I think it was that struggle of getting to that leading man status. I think he was at his strongest when he was a supporting player or part of a collective.
I know. Right.
And that's really hard when you're, golden boy.
I know it happened with Andrew Stevens too. He was a rising star in the late '70s and just couldn't be the headline.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Edward Mulhare. Now I didn't piece it together to watch this movie. He's been doing Knight Rider.
Yeah.
And he does this. Right. Yeah. So, when did he find time? What did he do? Pull like a Michael J. Fox?
He really does enjoy the fast-paced cars and bikes world,
Right, because everyone's like, well, that makes sense because they were doing fast cars and explosions.
This film seemed to me, I couldn't get an exact date down for how long it took to film, but this film seems to me like one that, at least from the acting portion of it, didn't take long.
No, there's a little bit, we'll take my review, there's a little bit like, it looks like we did the action and second unit, a lot of stuff with the cars. But interesting, he got his, he's Professor Higgins in My Fair Lady on stage after, what's his name, who did the movie. But he did for many years. And there was a TV show, Ghosts and Miss Muir, that was very famous in Britain. And then he does Knight Rider as Devon Miles, who told Kit and Michael Knight where to go for the crimes and everything. It was released in June of 1982. And I just turned 5 years old.
Yeah.
So,
and it's because of that year and that specific time placement that I think it's actually getting a little bit more of a lift, and people are talking about a little bit more now. You had documentaries like when I funded In Search of Tomorrow, which was an 80s documentary about science fiction films. They covered this. You also have 1982, The Greatest Geek Year Ever, which was a 4-part series on CW earlier this year.
Yeah.
That covered this film as well.
Like, you talked about all the movies that we had coming out in 82 that were just fantastic. I mean, summer 82 was just E.T. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
It's crazy to think about films in 82 that made it so long in the cinema when you see how many other films of 82 there was taking up that space. Like, we talk about how difficult it is to get your film into a theater nowadays. That was that moment, was when that, the pressure of, can I get my film seen, was the actual tough part about it.
Especially in 82. Right, yes. And let's get to the music part of this, because it's interesting. Music by Jared Immel, who did the scoring also for Gunsmoke, Dallas, and Guns of Paradise TV shows. It's interesting to know this is a whole scoring piece for this, but he also was more successful in television, which is a lot harder to do because you have to do episodes, and my God, get it out now.
Yeah, you had to come up with themes that you could use and reuse as much as possible, and I think that probably aided them here because there is that kind of symbiotic kind of relationship with the music where it doesn't have a lot of flair to it. It's kind of a repetitious piece of score.
But you have that marching, like, let's go and get the bad guys kind of a feel to it, to the music. So it's got that kind of punchy stuff. I think it's very, for the time, very interesting because this is pre-Transformers, man.
Yeah.
Because I think if you did this in about 5 years afterwards, you would have to have them become Transformers.
Yeah, they have to get inside the vehicle and turn it into something.
Right, yeah. So, I barely remember this film existing until Tyler mentioned, because I was like, Megaforce, there's almost like Megatron. Right. It's kind of, in my back of my memory, a very faint memory of this ever coming out.
Well, for a film that was, it was financed by 20th Century Fox, then kind of got shuffled around to other studios for release, because I just don't think people really knew what to do with the finished product. It's not streaming anywhere. As far as like subscription-based stuff, you have to either rent it or purchase it on Apple or Amazon. And at the time of this recording, there's nowhere else that has it. It's hard to find the DVD. It's not on Blu-ray. It's not on 4K. It's a movie that word of mouth really is what gets it there. And we got the word of mouth from our patron to cover it for the show, or else it may not have even crossed our desk because it just wouldn't have been something that we had like, a physical piece of to get a hold of.
Well, I think it's perfect. Perfect time to talk about our review of Megaforce. I barely remember seeing this. It's nice that he picked this. feels like seeing it for the first time also.
There's a certain level of acceptable cheese going into Megaforce. Thankfully, it has a great title that tells you what you're going to be kind of getting in for. This film does not sell itself on its seriousness for the title alone.
No.
It is one of the few films that still holds a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. There's not a single Rotten Tomatoes critic who has given the film a positive review. I can't wholeheartedly recommend it. I think it's one of those movies that has to catch you at a certain time and stay with you.
Yes.
But I do think that there's some
with that.
interesting stuff about the film. In fact, I find that the character interactions are my favorite part, which is interesting because it's directed by a stuntman. So you would assume that the action would be the part that hits the film best, but I really found that the interactions between especially Michael Beck and Barry Bostwick were really great.
Yeah, I was almost itching for a Smokey and Bandit thing. Put them in a car, put them in a vehicle
Get them together more, yeah.
Yeah, get them together more.
Yeah, because oftentimes we lose them in the action, and then I don't feel like I'm really connected to it at all. And I found the action a little bit frazzled. There's moments where the characters are just shooting, everyone's shooting, but you never see where any of those things land. And it's like that kind of thing lost me a little bit because I was so into what the characters were doing.
Well, the composition really gets me because there's a lot of time you see explosion tanks and everything, and I'm pausing and I go, is that miniatures or is that real? If it's real, then you lost a great opportunity. Because if it's miniatures, fine, I get it, why you need the distance and everything. But if it's real things...
It is a lot far back stuff.
Right. If it's really tanks that you have, my God, get in there and show it.
Well, the vehicles really worked. The vehicle designer was given $1 million and I think 6 months, and he came in. All these vehicles actually ran and worked and could have been used for these chases. I just don't think they really chased. They kind of just came in together.
Came in and came out on an assembly. Well, show them jumping. Show how awesome it is to ride these things.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, this coming right after what, Mad Max?
Yeah, Mad Max was the concern was that it was going to overshadow this film, which it eventually did do.
Yeah.
And it's just, when you see how great the action is in Mad Max, or even if you eliminated all the characters in Mad Max and just had the action, that would be a serviceable film on its own.
Especially when they have it from a distance, like a helicopter, and they're showing you can tell those are real vehicles moving.
Yeah.
They really are out there almost hitting each other.
Yeah, and I think that kind of comes down to it with, like, for the Hal Needham of it all, is that he knows how to do the stunts. It's just, can he capture the stunts on film? There's a great moment, actually, that involves Barry Bostwick's character Ace as he's jumping over this kind of ledge, and he throws the grenade into the tank. It's a great little moment in the film, and I think it's where he captures the action really well, because it's a little goofy, a little silly.
A little pre-Captain America.
But you kind of want to get up and cheer at that moment, and we just didn't have a lot of that throughout the action. And going back to, like, the character interactions of it, Bostwick understood the assignment so well, and I think he does have a good rapport with Beck. There's that great scene where he's, like, kind of telling the story about a great man once told me blah, 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 and he said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Who told you that? You did. And I think that's a great character interaction of these two guys that have been probably brothers their entire lives. Yeah. And now they're
I love that interesting chemistry.
Yeah.
It should have been a little bit more instead of coming into the second act.
Yeah. I also really like the chemistry between Bostwick and Persis Kambata. Who plays Zara, his, like, love interest for the film, and again, like, kind of shoving that love interest out of the film for a large portion of it, because she wants to train, she wants to be part of the team.
Which is completely different what he did when he did Smoking a Bandit.
Yeah.
The love interest.
She was part of it. She was forced into it. Yeah. Didn't want to be there. And yeah, Persis, who was also in Star Trek the Motion Picture, she played the shaved head woman who gets infected with the V'ger.
That's okay, because looking at like Star Trek, like, who the heck is there?
Yeah, so she had a good couple of years there where she was performing, and then just kind of didn't get as much of that lift as she had once gotten. I think she does a great job with the material she's given in the film, and again with the chemistry with the other characters, but she's just kind of shelved aside. It's the unfortunate frustration of characters and actors who understand what film they're in and are really trying hard, but I don't know if they're given that much to do.
And I would think if it's somebody, especially a movie like this, you have not a lot of play with parody, move the camera. Just move it.
Yeah. Even
if it's two people talking, you pretty much, there's a scene in the movie where you set down the camera and we see Barry's butt for like 5 minutes, unintentionally. Well, move it
around.
All I
need for the film, actually.
Move it, but it's right there dead center. Is that the intent for what you want?
Mm-hmm.
Because move it in there. Get in there personally. That's the thing about Smokey the Bandit. The camera's right there for Sally Field and Burt Reynolds, even though that's a car chase movie.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that we would get a little more like that. But the camera is so far away. It's such a distant occupant, observer of what's going on. I'd rather be more of a participant of this movie.
Yeah.
And I think if it was the camera's more a participant, it'd probably be a much more interesting movie to see. Put the camera on the car.
Yeah.
Get the action on there.
Yeah, there's a couple of moments where they get to that, but then don't do it enough, and it's kind of just a little flash in the pan moment in the film, and it's something that could, the problem with Megaforce is when it came out, it was overshadowed in almost every aspect by some other film. Maybe not one particular film, but some film did the car stunts better. Some film did the spoof better. Some films did the costuming better. The costumes, which were actually done by the Mattel toy company, there is no actual costume designer in the film. But you can believe that when you even look at Guerrera, played by Henry Silva. He's kind of got that cowboy / army general look to him. He looks like you'd buy an action figure with that guy.
It looks like they took the storyboards for what they want for action figures and was like, just make that.
Yeah, between Ace Hunter and Guerrera, it's almost like these guys could have been gangs in the aforementioned Warriors. Like, because they have this theme to their visual appeal. And again, that's another film that I think did better on the costuming then.
But it's fine to do that costuming, but to have somebody run it, to have the little more flared, adjusted, and all right, this really looks awkward to have this costume on and with this frame, kind of tilted like that. So yeah, I think it's the right time for this movie. It's the right temperament for this movie. It's every the ingredients. It's just execution wise.
Yeah, it just didn't cross that level for me. There's things I liked about it. I'm never gonna, if someone else pops it in at my home, I'm never gonna say take that disc out. But I don't feel like that grasp. It feels to me like a lot of these other films where they got to grab you at the right time, and there's a perfect moment in your life for this movie.
Yeah.
And for me, it just didn't really cross that.
Yeah.
I can respect it as a brilliant piece of cheese, and I'm so glad I got the chance to see it. I just wish that I connected with the material. I wish that action was better because you're a stuntman.
Like Road Warrior, like Mad Max action.
If you gave me a comedic Mad Max.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted. Yeah. Like a spoof of Mad Max. Again, this movie made 2 years later. Perfect.
You and I are going to get that script done.
There we go. Megaforce 2, the Megaforcening.
Megaforcening. Yes. What do you think of our Megaforcening? Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know in your comments down below what you thought about the film. What cheesy actor would you bring in to play the villain of the second Megaforce? We'd love to hear your thoughts
Bruce
on
Campbell.
that. He's got to be on the good guys. He's got to be on the good guys.
That's what this film needs, is some kind of a Bruce Campbell at the end. I mean, I love Michael Beck and everything, but it has somebody that knew was the assignment.
The bad guy needed to be on the same level that Bostwick was on.
Or you need somebody like Leslie Nielsen Airplane that wants to shoot straight, like we're doing a legit movie.
We had that with George Firth as the professor, who is kind of always giving these one-liners and exploding things. See, more of George Firth, more of all the good elements.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us once again, and thank you, Tyler, for picking such a unique film.
Yeah, we would never talk about it until you.
Yeah. Tyler forces us out of our comfort zone, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you once again, Tyler. And you can be like Tyler and join the Patreon and tell us what film we should cover next.
And force us to get out of our comfort zone for your flavors.
Mega style. Anyway, thanks for joining us. You can find all of my films over at goatfilmreviews.com. I won't mega force you to read, but you can.
Hey, you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and you can listen to it any vehicle as long as you have internet.